Luka, this is why Nico and the Dallas Mavericks stopped believing in you. Player now and Luka Doncic is out of shape.
Doncic has trouble defending Tyrese Halliburton.
Now, what if I told you there was a man at the helm of the Dallas Mavericks, one of the most iconic franchises in NBA history? He held a private press conference last week with no cameras, no phones, and no accountability nowhere to be found, and just repeated the phrase over and over and over again, saying defense wins championships. What if I told you that that same man fired a 20-year-old veteran trainer over a Zoom call while he was attending to his dying mother out in Ohio? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the circus and shit show of how Nico Harrison turned the Dallas Mavericks into a monarchy of dysfunction. Now let's start with the most bizarre part of the story. A private press conference, no cameras, no phones, and only a handful of handpicked media members allowed to attend. And the phrase defense wins championship was said, and no exaggeration, almost the entire press conference, over and over and over again. According to the people in the room, it wasn't just a theme, it was as if it was like the slogan for the Dallas Mavericks. And when Nico was asked about the infamous Luka trade, no joke, he said no regrets. This was a clear sign that Nico Harrison wasn't just running a team, he was trying to run a kingdom. Casey Smith, a name synonymous with the Dallas Mavericks, the head athletic trainer since 2004, and a guy that Dirk Nowitzki trusted, and a guy that Luka Doncic trusted, fired over a Zoom call after 20 years of service, while tending to her terminally ill mother in what would be her final weeks of life. And why? According to multiple sources, it says that Nico Harrison felt threatened by him. You cannot make this up at all. And on top of that, Dirk Nowitzki, the greatest Maverick of all time, because of the firing, started to really distance himself from the team. And when your franchise cornerstone starts to back away from the franchise, you have officially lost the soul of your organization. The man that brought you a championship detached himself from the organization. You know you are doing something wrong. And on top of that, but it didn't stop there. The new trainers brought in by Nico Harrison missed a stress factor in Derek Lively's foot back in January. And after he missed 2 straight games, what do you think they were doing when this man's ankle was fractured? They were running him through high-intensity return-to-play drills. It wasn't until it was ordered before the next game that he got the CT scan to really see what was going on. Because the timetable before the CT scan was a 2-day timetable. But it turns out it was a stress factor in his ankle that would sideline him for 2.5 months. This wasn't just negligence, it was incompetence in putting a rising center's career at jeopardy. And because of this, a quote came out from a team source that said, someone should be fired for that. And was anyone fired for that? Did anyone take accountability for that? The answer would be no. That was just the tip of the iceberg. Luka Doncic, your franchise player, MVP candidate, in the beginning of the season, he came out a little sluggish. While Luka was trying to nurse a wrist injury, Nico Harrison thought that Luka Doncic was holding the team hostage. Doncic's camp argued that he was better off having around-the-clock access to their Mavs practice facility rather than traveling with the team. It was pointed out that Doncic was doing two-a-day multi-hour basketball workouts that wouldn't be possible with court time difficult to book on the road. He also could utilize the weight room and high-tech medical equipment at his convenience, which isn't the case in other teams' arenas and hotels. And what do you think Nico Harrison did with his franchise superstar player's only request at this point of the season? He countered and told Luka Doncic that he needed to scrimmage with the team and travel with the team. Doncic's camp said in response he'd be happy to practice with the G League Texas Legends in Frisco, and Nico Harrison was not having it. He basically just told his franchise star, go fuck yourself. I'm not gonna abide by what you want. I'm gonna do what I want. Not only was Luka forced to travel and scrimmage with the team while hurt, but Nico allegedly tried to leak Luka's practice footage to paint him in a bad light. Allegedly, right? To make matters worse, after Luka Doncic was traded to LA Lakers, apparently all these mysterious reports coming out about Luka's conditioning. He ballooned up to 280 pounds. He was not in shape from the start of the season, basically painting Luka as a fat, alcoholic slob who didn't know how to take care of himself, so the Dallas Mavericks decided to move off of him. This wasn't leadership, this was sabotage. Nico Harrison went on a smear campaign about Luka. Even in a press conference today, he did say, "I've never actually spoken ill of Luka at all." And we all know that Nico Harrison is a top-tier manipulator and a top-tier liar. Not everything this man says is truth. Actually, nothing this man says is truth. And here's the craziest part. Sources say that the only reason Luka wasn't traded last summer was because the Mavericks made it to the NBA Finals. Nico waited for Luka to get injured again before planning his next move. He didn't just try to trade the franchise, he tried to destroy it from within. And now Kyrie Irving, the Dallas Mavericks' second star, has torn his ACL, and Nico Harrison today in the press conference basically brushed it off and said that next year we would be competing for a championship. I'm not sure if Nico's aware of this, but Kyrie Irving will be turning 33 years old. And a man at 6'3", 33 years old, trying to come back from a torn ACL, in which he sustained last month, he will not be ready by the start of the season. Shams reported a couple days ago that Kyrie Irving's aiming for a January return, and that is the earliest at best a January return. Now we are looking at the fact that Anthony Davis, a man who has dealt with injuries himself throughout his career, now has to anchor an offense and a defense basically 2 to 3 months without a secondary star. And on top of that, Kyrie Irving will be 1 year removed from his ACL injury, so he will need some time to come back to full force. So now you're expecting 2 injury-riddled stars in the later parts of their career to carry your offense and your defense to push for a championship next year and set unrealistic expectations upon them in a short time span. I'm sorry to say this, Nico Harrison, you deserve the worst in your life. But to also firing Casey Smith at one of the worst moments you could, and also going on a smear campaign for Luka, even though you say you didn't. Today's press conference came with a lot of things. First of all, a reporter asked Nico straight up to his face, "Why shouldn't you be fired?" And Nico's response was, "I think I've done a really good job here." Yeah, you did. Throughout the years, you have done some really good things for his organization. It only takes one very, 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 very bad trade to ruin your entire reputation. Up until the Luka trade, Nico Harrison had a good track record, such as last trade deadline trading for PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, this offseason signing Klay Thompson and Najee Marshall, and even last offseason signing Derrick Jones Jr. on a minimum. Putting the right pieces around Luka and Kyrie for them to contend last year, it was pitch perfect. Trading Case and Wallace for Derek Lively, putting that lob threat around Luka. You are putting all the pieces together. Also acquiring Quentin Grimes for aging Tim Hardaway Jr. It felt like you were pushing into the right direction for this Mavericks team. You made one of the biggest mistakes a man could make. That is give up on Luka Doncic. And on top of that, after you traded away Luka and prioritized defense, you then traded away Quentin Grimes for Cody Martin, who has basically not played for your team this entire year since trading for him. And while Quentin Grimes over there in Philadelphia is averaging 23 points since becoming a 76er. You know how insane that is. You gave up on a young prospect, and now think about how much he would have thrived in the Dallas Mavericks while Kyrie would be hurt. Nico Harrison, I hate to be the one to break it to you, but no, you've done a terrible job as the Dallas Mavericks GM. And on top of that, Nico Harrison also said, "I did know Luka was important to the fan base. I didn't know quite to this level." How more brain dead a person can be that you didn't know how big your franchise cornerstone was, the second best Maverick of all time behind Dirk Nowitzki, the man who's been carrying your franchise since 2018. You know how big he was? A lot of people became Mavericks fans because of him. People come to games just to watch Luka. He brought a whole international fan base from Slovenia to watch Mavericks games in the middle of the night. But you don't know how big he was? I don't know how, as a GM, you don't know how big your franchise player is, but at a certain point it becomes incompetence. You're trying to make your decisions feel like they were well warranted. You feel like there's zero accountability in this man's actions. And the worst part about this all is that through it all, Luka Doncic would have signed an extension with the Dallas Mavericks. He wanted to be a Maverick for life, that was well known. Even with how much they mistreated him, how much they pushed him to the side and make him feel like he was nothing, he still wants to be a Dallas Maverick for life. But Nico Harrison did not care. He wanted to ship him off as quick as possible because, quote-unquote, defense wins championships. The Dallas Mavericks aren't just dysfunctional, they're at war with themselves. General manager drunk on power, a legendary trainer gone, a Hall of Fame icon distancing himself, a franchise player betrayed, and a fan base left speechless. This isn't a rough patch. This is the implosion of Dallas Mavericks. And if you're a Mavericks fan, you deserve answers. If you're Luka Doncic, you deserve more respect. And if you're Nico Harrison, it might be time for you to pack it up. That is the end for the Nico Harrison saga as of this season and the last reports we have of him. If you like this video, leave a like and subscribe, and let me know what you think of Nico Harrison and Dallas Mavericks in the comments down below. And if you're interested in what I have to say about the Golden State Warriors coming into the playoffs, videos on screen now, and as always, go hard on them dudes. Salute!